Hey everyone, hold on to your sweet clown posterior, because chances are I'm about to take a massive dump all over your pathetic excuse for a zombie survival plan. One of the biggest mistakes people do is they plan to loot and they plan to get stuff after the event happens. This goes against all conventional survivalist texts, especially ones intended for long-term post-apocalyptic survival. If you have ever been to the stores shortly after a massive disaster, you may have noticed that the place is pretty much stripped bare. I remember when the infamous Queensland floods happened. I was up on a mountain struggling with heat stroke for most of the day and was getting circled by wild dogs on the way back down. So I didn't even know about the floods until the next day. And by then, the shopping centres had been pretty much stripped clean. Except for the vegan and gluten-free section, that looked pretty much untouched. There are so many reasons why you cannot rely on just going and looting or going and grabbing stuff at the last minute. To start with, everybody's got that plan. Almost everyone's going to run straight to the shopping centre as soon as they hear that there's zombies. So you can kiss that 3 days supply goodbye. Most shopping centres use just-in-time inventory for stock rotation, and as a result they have a bare minimum of supplies on their shelves. And as a result of just-in-time inventories, a lot of supermarkets and shops have enough on their shelves that it needs to be replenished every 3 days because there's only about a 3 day supply. But from a lot of studies I read, about 3 is the average for the United States at least. And with my experience, as soon as a disaster is declared, bam, everything's gone. And I'm not even anywhere close to Brisbane, but they got flooded and the roads were underwater and the major central warehouse that stocked all the food went underwater. So everybody panicked, rushed to the stores and hoarded, which is a pretty normal reaction to a disaster or people believing there's going to be one imminently. Which has a whole nother problem with viral outbreaks and pandemics. It's a massive concentration of people. Do you really want to be going to a place that's going to be overrun with people, both infected and uninfected? Going to the mall at the 11th hour to try and stock up at the last minute has the potential to expose you to thousands of people who may or may not be infected and contagious. And, well, I don't know about you, but I don't think they'd want me taking my katana to the mall until well and truly after that everyone's turned into a zombie, in which case they don't have an opinion other than maybe which isn't really much of an opinion. Now, the other important thing is, if it's a SHTF or a without rule of law situation, the value of cheap commodities like food become exponentially more valuable. In a disaster of the magnitude of a zombie apocalypse, people would be willing to kill each other over a 10 kilo bag of rice. Or you could maybe buy that for $15 if you get it before SHTF or zombie SHTF. Another thing people think they'll just find are weapons. The amount of people who say, oh, I'll just find a gun. It's ridiculous. The majority of people cannot use a firearm effectively. If you've ever been to a range and seen someone who's never used a gun before pick up a 22 and just not be able to hit the paper 20 feet in front of them with a 22 rifle, yeah. So if you think you're just going to be able to pick up a gun and be some expert marksman, Have fun with that. Just try not to be smoking crack while you're doing it. Just try to get some of that crystal meth out of your system before you do it. And it is so easy to just buy a tomahawk. I picked this up, 20 bucks. This is a cold steel. I think this is the Rifleman's Hawk. It's the biggest one they make. If I wanted to make this into a long weapon, I could put a long handle on it and I'd have a $40 halberd. A freaking halberd. Minus the spike on the front. And with a hammer instead of a spike on the back. But honestly, you really only need that big blade at the front. You can get the spiked one. And you could maybe find some way to put a spike on the top. But this, with a 6-7 foot handle on it, that's pretty much a halberd. And this head plus handle only cost me 40 bucks. You could carve your own handle out of a bit of wood, which could be free, or you could do the easy thing and just buy a long piece of wood and then carve it in the size. But to think that you're just going to run down to the hardware store and grab a crowbar and an axe, good luck with that. Especially after everybody else just had the exact same idea. And do you really think they have enough axes, hammers, and crowbars to supply everybody in town? Probably not. And for those of you who live in countries where it's easy to get a firearm, I would argue that it would be a lot easier to get a .22 rifle now than hope to find one later. You want to eliminate variables and get ready before the event happens. Planning to loot is planning to fail. More importantly, if you get supplies ahead of time, you can practice with them, be it outdoors equipment or weapons. And you can stockpile a lot easier. You can slowly increase your stockpiles of food over time. And let's face it, food is going up in price. So if you're going to be purchasing stuff with a very long shelf life now, and you buy it in bulk, that can help you save money in the long run, even if there isn't a zombie apocalypse. As well as, you'll have supplies and stuff for other emergencies, such as storms. Now me, I have about 6 months worth of food. I'm going to increase it. I need more storable water. That's my concern at the moment. But it is much easier, cheaper, and safer to get stuff ready now than if you've got to do it in amongst thousands of people fighting for their lives and psychotic cannibals trying to eat you. And let's say there isn't an emergency. You know what? I live in Queensland. Large bushfires, flooding, and tropical cyclones are just a part of life in Queensland. So even if I'm not affected and I have a large stockpile, I can donate some of that to people who are affected by natural disasters. And I can use my stuff that I'm not using to help others. So for all you people out there who think they're just going to find what they need when the crisis happens, no. You're going to be competing with everybody else. Unless you get ready ahead of time, which is what I endorse. And if you have it ahead of time, then you know you have it. You don't have to risk your life fighting with other people to get it. And you do not have to go to, for example, the supermarket where everybody else is going who may or may not be infected. I just wanted to get that out there. Get prepared ahead of time. Stockpile supplies. Even if there aren't zombies, it'll help for other things. Alright, try not to have too many nightmares.